No one ever dared to swim in Blackfern Lake after sundown. The elders spoke in hushed tones about strange sounds and flickering lights beneath the surface. Some said it was just the wind. Others swore they had seen a figure, pale, silent and drifting under the water. Elias had never believed in ghost stories. At 17, he thought himself too old to be frightened by tales told to keep children away from danger. That summer, curiosity got the better of him. It was just past midnight when he slipped out of the cabin his family had rented and made his way through the forest. The moon hung low, casting a dim silver light on the water. Fog hugged the shore, swirling around his ankles like a living thing. The lake was still, too still. He tossed a rock into the water, expecting a splash. Instead, it vanished with barely a ripple. That was the first thing that felt wrong. Then he saw her, a girl standing ankle-deep in the lake facing away from him. Her long hair floated on the surface like strands of kelp. She wore a white dress that clung to her as though soaked, though no ripples disturbed the water around her. "Hey!" Elias called, his voice louder than he meant. "Are you okay?" The girl turned her head slowly, not all the way, just enough for him to see one pale eye. And then she sank. Not fell, not stumbled. She simply slipped downward as if pulled by unseen hands, vanishing beneath the surface without a sound. Elias ran to the edge of the water and shouted again, but there was no answer. The lake was still as glass. Something about the silence unnerved him more than the sight of the girl. Then he heard it, a whisper, faint and cold, curling around his ears from beneath the water. A name, his name, Elias. He took a step back. The fog had thickened behind him, and the path he'd used to reach the lake had disappeared. And then he saw the footprints, small, wet, leading out of the lake, and toward him. Elias froze. The footprints stopped a few feet away from him, as if the girl had been standing there just moments before. He spun around, scanning the mist for any sign of movement. There was nothing, only the quiet lapping of the lake and the rustling leaves in the trees above. Then he heard it again. Elias. This time it was clearer, softer, and closer. The voice seemed to echo from beneath his feet, rising from the depths of the lake. He backed away from the shoreline, his breath catching in his throat. He told himself to run, to leave the lake behind and never come back. But something rooted him there. It wasn't fear. It was sadness. Suddenly, a sound broke the silence, a soft sob, like that of a child trying not to be heard. It came from the trees. Elias turned toward it, moving cautiously through the mist. As he stepped deeper into the forest, the sobbing grew louder, and a chill settled into his bones. He found her there, sitting on a fallen log. The same girl, her wet dress clinging to her frame, her hair hanging like a curtain over her face. She was shivering. "You're real," he whispered. She looked up. Her eyes were glassy, impossibly blue, and full of something ancient. Not anger, not fear. Something older. "I didn't mean to stay," she said, her voice barely above a breath. Elias stepped closer. "Stay where?" She looked past him toward the lake. Under. A gust of wind swept through the trees, and in that instant the girl vanished. No sound, no movement, just gone. And then he saw it. Carved into the bark of the log where she'd sat was a name, Elena, and beneath it the year 1892. Elias stumbled back, his heart pounding. That night he barely made it home through the fog. He didn't speak of what he saw, but from that moment on, he began to dream of her. Every night she was there, drifting beneath the surface, waiting. And then one morning he woke up with lake water on his floor, and footprints, small and wet, leading toward his bed. Elias couldn't sleep anymore. Every night Elena called to him. Her voice, once faint, had grown clearer. He tried to tell himself it was just dreams, that none of it had been real, but the signs kept appearing. Misty handprints on his window, the scent of lake water in his room, whispers curling through his headphones even when they weren't plugged in. He needed answers, so he went back. This time just before dawn. The lake was shrouded in fog, silent as before. He walked to the edge, holding the old lantern from his grandfather's shed. In his pocket was a bundle of dried heather and iron nails. Charms. An old woman in town had pressed into his hand after overhearing him. "Ask about Elena. She doesn't want to hurt you," she had said, eyes cloudy with age. "She just wants to be remembered." Elias stood at the shoreline and called her name. Elena. No reply. Then he stepped into the water. It was colder than before, biting at his skin. But he kept walking. The lake swallowed his ankles, then his knees, then his waist. Still he called her name. "Elena, I know what happened to you." The water turned around him suddenly, swirling upward like a whirlpool. And then she was there, her pale face inches from his. Her eyes full of sadness, not malice. "You're not like the others," she whispered. "What do you want from me?" Elias asked, trembling. "To go home." He nodded. "Then let me help you." She reached for his hand, and for a moment the world disappeared. When Elias opened his eyes, he was lying on the shore, soaked to the bone. The sun was rising, the fog had cleared, and the lake was still. He never saw her again. But years later, when workers dredged part of Blackfern Lake to build a new dock, they found a skeleton in a white dress, tangled in chains beneath a bed of stone. Clutched in her hand was a silver locket. Inside was a name, Elena Briarwood, and beside the bones, untouched by time, was a carving in the stone. "Thank you, Elias. I'm free now."